So you had a fun weekend, huh?
I sure did. Yeah. My
What'd you do?
entire family in a cabin together at Pine Mountain Lake, which is near Groveland.
Wow.
Kind of on the way to Yosemite, I guess. So,
Is that like a family tradition?
yeah, we've been going for years. We hadn't been since pre-COVID, 2019. And you know what's
Oh.
funny is the kids remember, so there are 6 and 3 or 4, all the grandkids, and they remembered the house from
Really?
2019. This house doesn't have 3 stories. And they're like all bummed out because it's not a giant 3-story cabin this time. It was a little bit more modest.
And they remember that from 3 years ago?
Yes.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
That's crazy.
But we had a really good time. The adults hiked Clouds Rest, which is 14 miles through Yosemite.
Your parents too?
No.
Oh, okay.
So the mid-adults, let's
Okay.
say.
Yeah. Okay.
No, we left the kids with Nana and Pop for the day. We went on a nice long hike. It was really great.
How long of a hike was that?
So it's 14 miles. It took us about 8 hours.
And how big of an elevation?
3,000 feet.
Woo!
And it takes you to this outcropping where you can look down on Half Dome. It's really cool. I'll put some pictures up on social media.
That's
But
really
it was awesome.
That's cool. It feels good to still be able to do that, right?
I was genuinely concerned that I wasn't gonna.
I'll bet, because you start, you get to a certain age, you think,
I put ibuprofen in my bag.
You did?
Yes.
All kinds of like those ace bandages and everything.
Yeah. One of us
braces.
had a knee brace on, and it wasn't until that final descent coming down. It's very steep, and I was really leaning on my poles to help me. But hiking poles are the business. They help a ton. Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm uneducated because I feel like they're just kind of a waste.
No
things to carry.
You put your weight on them especially as you're going down. You can put your weight on them, or as you're going up. You use a little bit of arm strength in addition to your quads, and it helps a ton.
Okay.
That's why I made it. I'm certain. So
really?
it was great.
But would you go on a regular hike around here with those things?
Not rolling hills, fire road kind of stuff. No, you need like rocks to go over or some significant elevation or something like that. But
we're kind of in a semi-rural area here, and I see people walking around with those walking sticks all the time. I'm like, really?
They help a little. Like, I think if you have hip pain, so I usually get hip pain about 9 miles in.
Oh, geez.
I hit 40 years old and like my hips hurt. So walking sticks would even help with that on flat road. You're just redistributing your weight a little bit.
Okay.
It's super helpful.
I'm sure they do it for a reason. They're not all idiots. I just don't understand it.
Yeah. It's kind of like having an e-bike, Richard.
Oh, okay.
It's a little extra help.
A little power assist.
Yeah, okay. So how was your 4th weekend?
All I did was study for 18 hours a day, 5 days a week. Ingrid was gone. She went to Monterey, and I just thought I'm going to take this time and power through it. And I got a bunch of work done, and I've only got another, probably 2 weeks worth of work, and I have 6 weeks to do it.
Hallelujah.
So it's going to be great. And then I'll be
You're
done.
Almost there.
I'll be done with that freaking degree.
It's amazing.
Okay. Anyway, so welcome to A Place of Possibility. I'm Richard Del Monte.
I'm Angela Wright.
And we are happy to have you here with us. Today, what are we talking about?
So we are talking about, is it really possible to retire and live on a lump sum of money?
No, of course not.
Yes, it is. Nope, show over, bye.
Yeah, forget about it. Don't even try.
Yeah, it is totally possible. And lump sum refers to like your nest egg, right?
Right.
Yeah.
How much you've got saved up for retirement.
Yeah.
Right.
So, people always say like, I saved in my 401k. I've got, $5 million. Is that really enough for me to live on for the rest of my life? And so this show is going to teach you how to figure that out and how to
give you the lawyer answer. It depends. Right. It does. It depends.
The almost lawyer over here.
Right.
Yeah. So,
okay.
What do we have to determine first?
So we have to work with this. What resources do we have to start with that we can rely on for retirement? So those typically will be things like your savings that you have, the amount you have in your IRAs, your Roth IRAs, your 401ks, your 403bs, your 457s if you work for a government entity, all that money plus any after-tax savings that you've got, that you maybe use money you inherited or built up.
Your trust, your brokerage account,
your individual accounts. Hopefully you don't have any of those because of, estate planning reasons. But yeah, all that. Plus your pension, if you have rental properties, hopefully, those are good assets right now, especially when inflationary times. And of course, Social Security.
Yeah.
Right. Those are the things you have. Those are the arrows in your quiver to attack retirement with.
Yes. So the first thing that you're going to do is add all of those up. Add all of the sums in your accounts, and that's your lump sum.
Right.
And then add up the monthly amount of all of those income streams that you get. Set the income streams aside for now, and we're going to focus on that nest egg, the lump sum.
Right.
What
can that give you?
Yeah.
In addition to all your other sources of income.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So how much can we safely withdraw from a sum of money?
All right. So the rule of thumb is somewhere between 3 and 5%. And one way to think about this, if you just want to, that becomes hard for you, is just take your lump sum and divide it by 20, right? And that's a good start. That's about the most you can actually plan on taking out, is divide your number by 20. So let's put it into numbers. If you have $5 million, that means you could draw somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000 a year before tax.
Yeah, good point.
Right.
And it makes sense, right? Just numerically, you are maybe withdrawing 4.5%. That's kind of the standard that we use for a lot of our clients, but you're earning maybe 6 to 8%. In your portfolio, right? So you're safely drawing from the income that your portfolio is generating every year without having to touch your nest egg.
Yeah.
And this can provide you with an inflation adjusted income. We'll talk about why that's important in a couple minutes here.
Yeah. And a good point though is people get a little bit fixated on the dividends or the interest they're making in their portfolio. You don't have to be stuck with just that.
Oh, that was the old way of doing
That's the old way. You can trim off a little bit of the growth.
Yeah.
So that you would do this basically on a total return basis, not how much revenue, how much make it in income.
Point.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're making 8% overall total return, you can afford to take out 4 to 5. Or if you're making 6, you could take out 3 or 4, something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So there are some risks, right? You're retiring and you're living on a lump sum of money, and people come to us, fist clench all the time, like, oh, can we really do this?
Yeah, they don't know.
And I think there are some things that you need to consider if you're going to be doing this.
Right.
And more of us are, right? The pension is dead by and
Pensions
large.
are, if you're lucky, if you have one, count your lucky stars, because those are very rare now.
Yeah. So the bulk of our audience is doing this. And so the first risk is that your investment strategy on that lump sum is either too conservative or too aggressive. So let's break this down. If you're too conservative, let's say you've got all of that money in T-bills, government bonds.
And so you're getting 3%, let's say now.
Yeah, right. So you're earning 3%, but you're drawing 4.5%. Well, you can do the math on that. You're taking out 1.5% more than you're earning every year. You will be touching that nest egg. So not aggressive enough. And then on the other side, we have people who are way too aggressive in their portfolio.
Yep.
And maybe they're seeing really violent swings in their account balance. And you may have multiple years where your account is down significantly. And then you're going to be tapping into your lump sum again. So there's a sweet spot in there. Again, it depends, Mr. Lawyer, but by and large, that's somewhere between 40 to 70% equities or stock in your investment portfolio.
Right. And not more than that.
Right.
Because what will happen is, if the stock market goes down 40, it can go down 50%.
Sure.
Right?
That's the most we've ever seen.
We've seen, in the modern era. So 50% decline, all of a sudden that's all you're working with. And if you're taking the same amount out you were taking before, now you're taking out double. If you were started out with 5, now you're taking out 10.
Yeah.
And it becomes unrecoverable. You end up having a vicious cycle and you end up out of money.
Right.
So you can't do it. You can't be too aggressive.
Yeah. And so that brings us to diversification, right? Because not all of your money is in the stock market. You're broadly diversifying among lots of different stocks, global stocks as well. The US is only 40% of the investable assets in the world.
True.
So, why just look here?
True.
And then you've got fixed income, bonds, municipalities, things like that in your portfolio. So we see a lot of times, this is especially popular for people who have worked for a publicly held company, is they fall in love with a stock that's done them right. Maybe you worked for Apple,
Nike, Apple.
Yeah, all those years.
Right.
And so you've got a big chunk of your portfolio in one stock. That's fine when you're my age, sort of.
Not really,
fine.
but it's better, it's safer if you're doing it when you're young.
Yeah, but one thing, remember, Enron? Yeah. One thing goes sideways with that company and you're suffering big losses. Yep. So staying diversified, super duper important. And the rule of thumb for us is no more than 10% in any one position in your portfolio.
That's a hard and fast rule. And you also want to make sure that you have enough, is diversified, like you have different industries, different asset classes, different, it's just, you got a mix of everything.
Yeah.
Because you want to have, like if you're a person that follows, cars, you have like an 8-cylinder engine, it's better than having a 2-cylinder engine, right? Because it's a smoother ride.
Yeah. And what we were talking about earlier is that we've recently implemented a new service where we can manage 401k accounts. So previously we could kind of give you an allocation, but we couldn't actually go in and trade your company 401k while you're still working there.
Right.
So technology has expanded. Yeah, it's really cool. We can manage your 401k.
Yeah.
So we started doing this for some clients, and we see that so many of them are in these age-based portfolios. So what were you telling me about that one client this morning?
Well, one client had a retirement date 2020, and it's already been 2 years ago. And they still have the fund, and it had like 70% in stock. And they thought they were like super conservative.
You would think.
You would think I was retired 2 years ago, be more conservative. And they ended up losing like 30% this year in their portfolio.
Wow.
And they're coming to us like, why is this happening? Because you have to look underneath the hood and know what's in these portfolios. Those age-weighted portfolios are dangerous. People think that that's like, just set it and forget it. No big deal. You can't trust, some of these entities, Fidelity, Vanguard, because like in Fidelity's case, especially, they tend to go very heavy into tech stocks. So when their market things go down, they're really getting slaughtered because the tech stocks are down 35% from their peak from last November, compared to the S&P down 20.
Yeah.
So, you got to be really careful know what you've got.
You can't assume.
And just assume and go, wow, they're taking care of it for me. No, wrong.
Yeah.
Because they're not, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So lack of diversification.
Yeah. So the next
That's a
risk
good
we
one.
have is that, the markets get really scary and you make the wrong choice at the wrong time as a retiree. So you're in this program, you're living on your lump sum, and, we have, this is happening right now, right? There's a lot of people out there sitting on the news, watching the news all day thinking, oh my gosh, this is the worst market we've ever had.
Yeah, it's going to be it's the end times.
Oh gosh. And they're thinking, should I go to cash?
Yeah.
Right? Because the markets are down and they're going to keep going down. And I have so many people ask me, can I lose all my money in the stock market? What if my portfolio goes to zero and I have nothing to live on? And the reality is, if you're properly diversified, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
As Richard just said, in the moderate area, the worst declines we've seen are 50%.
Right.
We're only down 20%, down 20% year to date. If you sell out now,
in the stock side.
stocks, If you sell out now, you're locking that in forever, and you've reduced now the amount of income that you can take by 20% over your lifetime.
Yep.
So, now is the time to not be fearful of the global stock markets, but to take advantage. Maybe you're rebalancing, maybe you're buying some more stock, maybe you're just holding your nose through this period. And the thing that you really want to be afraid of are, Ponzi schemes and people who tell you,
Insurance
things that
agents.
are too good to be true. Insurance people
annuities.
locking your money in annuities.
Yeah.
A lot of people go into these real estate limited partnerships, which they think are going to return 20% and they never do. And so, just any sort of thing that seems too good to be true.
Yeah.
That's what you really want to be afraid of. We have a lot of history in the market and a lot of reasons to believe today, believe it or not, that the markets will come back. We will continue as normal. Capitalism, thrives, and we're going to be okay.
Yep. I mean, if you just do the math, the stock market has averaged 9 to 11% a year, going back for forever, really, back to the foundation of the country. And if you just do the math, we're sitting at 31,000 right now on the Dow. In 15 or 20 years, it'll be over 100,000.
Impossible.
No, people say that it's impossible. It's just math.
Yeah.
It will happen.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of when.
What was the Dow when you started?
When I started doing this business, the Dow was at 1,500. And now, people, they would have thought, if I said that, if someone said it was going to be 31,000 or 37,000, what it was at the beginning of the year, people would think you were insane to say that.
Oh, that guy's a crackpot.
Yeah, that guy's crazy. It's impossible. But there we have it, right?
Yeah.
It's just compound math.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so there, that's a big one. And we kind of passed one, which was being too conservative in your investments.
You talked about that.
We did?
Yeah.
Don't be all T-bills and all that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
So what about expectations? What can people who are diversifying their portfolio expect to earn throughout their retirement?
Okay. So if you have a diversified portfolio, so you have say you had 40% stock and 60% bonds or T-bills or something, safe money, probably looking at around 5.5%, 6%. It's actually better now because we now have safe money that actually generates a return rather than, zero. At the beginning of the year, we were buying T-bills for people that yielded 1/8%, and now they're yielding more than 3%. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So, yeah. So, but on the higher end, if you can go up to about 70% equity stocks, then you can maybe get closer to 8% return, something like
Awesome.
that. Yeah. So between 5.5% and 8%, depending on your risk tolerance.
And so bring it back to, this draw rate. Let's say you're drawing 4.5%, you're earning 6 to 8%. You're banking some of that money for later. And and again, we're going to talk about why that's important.
Yep. So, then did we talk about unrealistic expectations for growth yet? No.
Yeah. Talk about that.
We just did that. Okay. So people go in and they say, oh, I made 30% of my money last year, so I'm going to take out 12% or something, and I'm still leaving a whole bunch. Hey, as we've seen this year, the markets are like this, they gyrate, and you have to go with the average returns. You can't assume that it's going to make 30% a year. Even if it does it 3 years in a row for some reason, that's not realistic. You have to go back and just say the long-term returns on stocks are 9 to 11%. And then the bonds. So all you can really get is 5.5% to 8%. Don't get too aggressive.
Right.
We're going to cover people that did that at the end. We got some examples, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah. So those are really important.
All right. What about controlling our withdrawal? So this is kind of like the final risk in living on a lump sum is people who are not really capable of controlling how much money they pull from their portfolio each year. That
is a big one. And it really depends on how much you can have, how much self-control you have. Are you the person that eats the frosting first on the cake, or do you or do you wait till the end, or do you have dessert at the end instead of for where the salad should be? Because people will have a lump sum and they think of it as this big giant pot of money that they can tap whenever they want to, especially if they have a good year.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to take some money out of my retirement account. Well, no, because that money that it grew by is for the future, for getting future draws to cover inflation, which we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Also for years like this one, it's we're down 20% on the equity side this year. Those last 2 years we had of 30-20% equity growth are what's kind of making up and making that average of 8%.
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
You have to bank that.
Absolutely. So you have to be able to say no. And that means sometimes say no to your kids.
Oh, that's a hard one.
It's super hard. We're watching this in real time with all of our clients. They have a really hard time saying no. Talk about some of the situations, like the lady with the kid going to jail.
Yeah, I mean, client called me one day and says, "Hey, my son has been taken to jail, and I need $25,000." And I did the math, and I said, like, that's not a sustainable amount of money to pull out of your portfolio. It will harm your income going forward permanently if you do this. And instead, there's public defender, as I suggested. We kind of talked about the realities of his case, and in the end, she didn't end up taking that money, but. Gosh, what a hard decision to make. You want to help your kids. Or I think, on a positive side, you want to help them with a down payment on a house. Your millennials and Gen Zs are struggling to buy houses, and their parents are seeing this and saying, all right, let's give them the money. Or you want to throw, an amazing wedding. We've all been cooped up for 2.5 years. Like, let's throw our kids an amazing wedding. You might be permanently damaging your retirement income over one party. Or one down payment.
Yeah.
Let your kids take the loan to buy the car at 3 or 4%. They will be able to pay it off.
Yep.
I think the thing that people go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
The thing that people forget is that, you want to help them, but in doing so, you might become a big burden to them. What's more of a burden? Allowing your child to go get a loan at 3 or 4% today, or forcing them to pay your bills when you're 85 years old because you can't.
You're broke.
That's a much bigger burden to put on your child.
Yeah.
Don't do that to them. Be savvy with how you're spending today. And there's a lot of other schools of thought around letting them get loans and save up and things like that,
Sure.
that would benefit them. So other reasons to do that as well.
Yep. And the other thing to think about is, for taking out these little chunks of money, we just talked to someone this morning who wanted to take out $70,000 to put a down payment on a house.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to point out, like, hey, you're probably going to have to take out $110,000 to pay the tax to net 70. So is it really worth it, to take out an extra $50,000, to cover a $70,000 thing? And all you're going to do is save 5% interest.
Right.
You have to be savvy,
Yeah.
It may still make sense. She may still decide to do that, but you want to know the numbers.
Right.
It's not just like, oh, I'm just going to go pull 70 grand out of my retirement account. No, sorry. Because there's a big tax bill for that.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about, what have you got to work with? How much can you safely withdraw? So let's talk about the next step is, what do you actually need to live on? And do these numbers add up for you or not? Right.
Yeah.
So setting a realistic budget is super important. We often have people, especially when you're, in your 40s, you will say, okay, well, my house will be paid off. The kids will be through college. I could live on $5,000 a month. When the reality is today, you're living on $20,000 a month.
Right.
But what do we see happening once people are retired?
Oh my gosh. Your spending will typically go up in the beginning because suddenly you have all this extra free time that you didn't have when you were working. And now what are you going to do? You're going to sit home and watch, Amazon Prime the whole time, or are you going to go out and do stuff? No, they're going on vacations. They're going to see their grandkids, they're traveling, they're playing golf, they're buying RVs.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of stuff. It costs a lot of money.
Or you're suddenly in your house all the time and you realize you really hate your living room and you want to remodel it. It's like
couch. Oh my gosh.
Oftentimes we make up that mortgage payment in other expenses real fast.
Yep.
And you're losing your mortgage deduction. So your house, your taxes are higher.
Yep.
So there's just a lot of reasons to believe that you might be spending the same or more. And I have an idea for everybody. I think it's really wise to make two budgets for retirement. You have your ideal budget, including your traveling and gifts to your children and grandchildren and all of the eating out that you want to do and golfing and spa days and all the things you dreamed of while you were sitting, working, doing this. And then you have your bare bones budget. What do I really need to live on? The tighten the belt strap kind of situation. What if we need to put a new roof on the house and we can't spend like before? What is our bare minimum? So knowing that for yourself and then knowing what's ideal can help you, a lot with your planning.
Good idea. For sure. Another factor, a risk factor for taking a lump sum, we're still on that track, is taxes, as we mentioned. Don't forget. So if you think I need $5,000 a month to live on, well, you're probably going to need $7,500 to pay the tax to net $5.
Yeah.
So don't just think 5. And when you're thinking about this, the 3 to 5% rule.
Yeah.
You have to figure out, what am I getting after tax? Not, we're talking about a pre-tax number of 3 to 5%.
Yeah.
So for you, what's the after tax going to be? You might be in a super high bracket. You need to have your CPA or tax preparer, or hopefully your wealth manager do the numbers for you and tell you, where are you going to be? What can I spend after tax? In our case, we're figuring out people's taxes and we're withholding the right amount from their distribution. So at the end of the year, they're coming out clean. They have no surprises, not getting big refunds, not having tax bills.
Right on the nose.
Yeah. So that's a big piece, tax.
Right. And then this budget changes over time. It's not static. I need 10 grand today and I'm going to need 10 grand in 20 years. Why is that?
Oh yeah. That's, I'm sorry. I forgot that piece. Yeah. So if you're taking out 5%, let's say right now it's giving you $5,000 a month, let's say. So at a 5% inflation rate, you are going to be needing more than $8,000 a month in 10 years if you're taking 5 today. And in 20 years, it's going to be more than $13,000 a month.
No way, I'll never spend that.
Yeah, well, that just to buy this. What do you mean? You can see, you guys fill up your tanks lately and see how much it costs. $150 to fill up your tank. I mean, it not only is gonna happen, it is happening. And my dad is a really good example for inflation because he retired in 1980 from a job. He was a welder for 30 years. And when he retired, his pension was $600 a month. Now you think today, my gosh, it's terrible. Well, at the time you could buy a car for $3,000. So it wasn't bad. He was comfortable, middle class, suburban lifestyle. Well, when he died in 2012, his last car was like $25,000.
Yeah.
So you can see how much inflation went up in that period of time. And if he had not had other inflation adjusted income streams like Social Security, rents, rental income, what would he have been doing for $600 a month? Yeah. Or he would have been a greeter at Walmart when he was 80.
Yeah.
Not a good way to go. So you can't go in saying, oh, I'm totally comfortable, at this age, unless you've built in inflation. And we've a year ago, people go, inflation.
Oh yeah.
And now like, oh, it's 8%. Oh my gosh, we do care about it now. But you need to care about it forever. Cause even if it goes back to the normal amount, which is 3% or so over the whole last century, 3.5, right?
3.
It's still going to eat away. It's just going to slowly eat away.
Yeah.
You won't notice
like termites in your walls.
Yes, exactly. It's the termites.
Inflation termites.
But you're going to wake up someday and find out, oh my gosh, I'm not making it.
Yeah.
Unless you plan for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this safe withdrawal rate that we are talking about at, let's say 4 to 5% builds in the ability for yourself to give yourself these 3% raises every year. Because remember, you're banking that money. It's getting reinvested, compound interest. The money will be there for you when you do need to give yourself that 3% raise. And it suddenly costs $150 to fill up your tank.
And when we say 3%, it's on the last year's number, not when you started 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a compound 30%. Really important, folks. We can't overemphasize this.
Yeah.
If you want to have a comfortable life.
Yeah. Okay. So the last point on budget is your end of life budget. Unfortunately, the average person spends about 4 years in some sort of care at the end of their life. Maybe you're going into seriously? Yeah, 4 years. So maybe you're the person that gets dementia and spends 10 years in some sort of assisted living facility. Maybe you die of a heart attack and you spend 0 years. We don't know. We can't predict that, unfortunately. And so, you need to be prepared for some of these eventualities. So on average, it's 4%. And whether that's, somebody's coming into your home, you're going out to a nursing home, maybe you spend significant time in the hospital or something like that. Average is like 10 grand a month. So do the math, 10 grand a month for 4 years. Now you're digging into your lump sum. And that's yet another reason why it's so important to have that nest egg available to you.
For sure.
At the end of your life. And unfortunately, long-term care insurance for a brief moment in the 2000s was really great. And now you just cannot find a policy that makes sense. We try to shop them for people in their 50s all the time, and they're just no good. So unfortunately, we're self-funding this for now until, maybe some programs will come about, but
or the government picks up the tab, maybe, I don't know.
And you don't want to plan on spending down your assets necessarily so that you can qualify for Medicaid or Medi-Cal if you're here in California, then you're leaving nothing to your kids. So just thinking about, my budget may be 10 grand a month, but at the end of my life, it's going to be 10 grand a month, inflation adjusted, plus another 10 grand a month. And the 10 grand is in today's dollars. That's what it costs right now for this kind of care. So remembering that having that lump sum at the end of your life is super important, and building this into your budget just so that you're prepared. And, worst case scenario, you don't need the money and the heirs inherit it. Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
All right.
Very
so
good.
How much, what do you have? How much can you take? What do you need? Those are kind of the 3 factors to help you decide if you're prepared to live on the lump sum.
And how am I going to react?
Right.
My emotional makeup, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about some. So Richard's 30 years in, I'm 20 years in. So now we've seen this play out in real
many
situations
times
with people. So we have 2 case studies for you.
Yeah. And you don't want to be, you want to be one of these and not the other. So one of them is a client who retired about 30 years ago from his job, and he got his lump sum, but he took a really high withdrawal rate, more like 7%.
It doesn't seem like that much more.
I know, but it's enough to it allows you to be in really bad shape when you get these down years that happen, and they do happen.
Yeah.
So because if the market goes down 50% and you're taking 7, now you're taking 14. So anyway, what happened was, it wasn't so much that the 7% that hurt him. It was the fact that every time his kids were like just a burden on him. And so they lived in rentals that he owned and his wife owned, and they wouldn't pay rent. And they wouldn't pay for health insurance because they didn't work. And so the parents had to pay for that too. It was before, Obamacare. And so they ended up just draining their entire retirement
How many
because
years
of the kids.
Did they
it took about 15 years, and they were broke, and they had a good amount to start with. But they just slowly. And we would say to them, hey, get a reverse mortgage, stop this, staunch the flow. They couldn't stop what they were doing. They had to keep going, even though they saw their account dwindling. They didn't have the wherewithal to say no to their kids. Yeah. And the kids made them go broke, and they ended up running out of money. I lost touch with them. I don't know what happened after that, but
I'm guessing Social Security.
They get Social Security. They did have some rentals, and I'm sure they had to get a reverse mortgage. So it's really sad. That's the story you don't want to follow.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So we've got
now we have a good one.
A good example of an executive who retired. This was 25 years ago now. They're still clients, and they kept their annual withdrawals under 5% all this time. They've been getting 3% raises on that every single year. And I think one of the key things is that they never rated their lump sum, but also they had to live through a lot of down markets. So over the last 25 years, we've had the .com So the dot-com burst happened, almost right after these people retired. That'll make you panic,
yeah,
right?
50% decline right after
and they
that.
had worked in a tech company too.
Yep.
And then you had the housing crisis.
That was another 50%er.
We had 2018.
20% in a quarter.
We had the pandemic,
35%
yeah, we've got
less
this
than a
year.
quarter.
Yeah.
And then this year, 20% in the worst stock market for the first half ever. Oh,
yeah.
give me a break.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So all those declines, and where's their money now?
Double.
They've doubled their money.
What they started with.
How you would imagine, you would think to yourself, how is that possible?
They kept their draw rate reasonable.
Yep.
They did proper rebalancing and reinvesting when markets were down. Basically, they listened to us.
Yeah, they basically listened to
toot, toot.
someone and they didn't react emotionally.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, they stayed the course. They properly invested and diversified their funds. They didn't overspend. And this, they've remodeled their house. They've done things. They're not living like paupers.
Yeah.
But, they've followed the best practices for retirees. And so it's a clear case on how when you follow these rules, you're actually growing your assets over time and living a comfortable, for them, retirement.
Right. Right. And I think they were a 70% equity client, right? That's how much they had.
Yeah. They're,
so they were on the aggressive side, on the high side of safe and prudent.
Yeah.
But, so it's all doable, folks. I mean, it works. It's just a matter of sticking to your knitting, being disciplined, knowing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And no surprises.
Yep. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. As always, if you want a copy of Endless Inheritance, please go ahead and request one using the link on your screen or on our website, free to you. This is about family dynamics and transferring that wealth to your heirs. So if that's on your mind after today, definitely pick up a copy of this. If you have any questions, or topic requests, you can send them to us at info@aplaceofpossibility.com. Of course, you can always schedule a meeting to talk with one or both of us if you want some financial support. Click on the link on your screen or go to aplaceofpossibility.com.
Yep. So thank you for being with us. And remember, you're invested and so are we. Have a great week and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.